Hi, welcome back to Unique Minds of the Okanagan. I'm Rob O'Day, and we're on location in Penticton with Endrene Shepherd, one of the Okanagan's most talented painters. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me over and sitting down to talk. Let's dive in right away with who you are, where you're from, and how you got into painting.
Um, so my name's Endrene Shepherd. I was born in Vancouver. My parents both grew up in the Okanagan, so at the first opportunity, my dad got a job transfer and we moved to Culloden when I was 9 years old. And I I've always known that I was an artist. It's something that even when I was 4 years old, I'm on record as saying that my mom's like, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I'm like, "Well, an artist," and I already am one. Like, I knew it. And there's sort of a history of artistic talent in my family. My great grandfather Shepherd, my grandfather Gordon Shepherd, my dad Bruce Shepherd, and then me. All the firstborns in the family have sort of this really intense artistic ability, and I knew that's what I wanted to do. I always knew.
Art is a very unique thing, and do you strictly do one style? Like, do you
Oh,
do portraits, or do you dive into abstract as well? And
um,
because I know artists tend to stick to what they like and enjoy.
yeah, for sure. I mean, and there's a lot of conventional wisdom that says you should stay in your lane. You should pick, a genre and stick with it. Um, but I've never been able to. Like, I was diagnosed with ADHD last year, and it made all the difference for me in understanding myself and having more empathy for who I am and how I am as an artist. And I think for the longest time I was beating myself up for not being able to like just do landscapes or just do portraits or just illustrate children's books or just do murals. I do all those things and more. And honestly, I've finally come to accept, like, not only is this part of who I am, but it's part of my success, because I am in a small town in, fairly rural British Columbia. And it, to be successful, I've had to be flexible. I've had to, at times do murals and at other times illustrate children's books. And it's not only has it kept things interesting for me, which, interest drives progress for people with ADHD, but it also has made it possible for me to be an artist, to sustain a career because of my flexibility. So it used to be something I was kind of ashamed of, and now I'm really proud of the fact that I can go with the flow, whichever way the flow is going. Yeah.
I I'm very guilty of bragging about the fact that you painted the band shell.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, I know who painted the band shell. So like it's to go from canvas to murals. What was that like?
My very first mural was the old Tickleberries mural in 2004, I
The
think,
one in
in
OK
OK
Falls?
Falls.
Okay.
Yeah. It's now been painted over, but I graduated from university at 2005, I guess, and I was working at Opus Art Supply store in Langley, and all growing up as a kid, it was just like a brown building, and I'm like, man, that place needs a big mural. And I'm like, well, I'm finished university. There's no galleries knocking at my door. Maybe I could be the one to do the Tickleberries mural. So I drew it out and I sent it to Dale Hoy, who was one of the owners at the time, and I think I only asked for like $2,000 for the whole thing, which to me at the time was a fortune. And the fact that they said yes was like, oh my God, I've hit the big time. I painted that whole, it's over 100 feet long, that whole mural over, I think, over 2 weeks in March 2005. And it was revolutionary for me, the fact that I'm like, oh, I can do this. All you have to do really a lot of times to be an artist is just to step into it and go, I can do this. I can at least try it. The worst thing that happens is you do a crappy job, then, well, so what? You paint over it. Like, no big deal. So, yeah. And murals, I think what murals gave me, I don't do murals anymore because I find them too physically taxing, and they're a lot of times, if it's outdoors, you don't have control over the weather. So I tend to not apply for mural jobs anymore. But what they gave me was like the physicality of them, like the painting really big. I still love really large canvases, and that it's almost like a dance when I'm painting, like I'm using my whole body. It's not just like a little tiny brush stroke. It's like using my whole arm, and I'm trying to make big motions with the brush instead of just little tiny ones.
Most people don't appreciate what goes into a painting or into a piece of art, and the amount of, like, they see it, they appreciate it, they look at it, they look away. But like with music, you hear it, you physically can see it. But there's like, with painting, it touches us on a total different element. And I think once you understand what the painter goes through, it kind of opens you up to the art itself more. At least personally for me, like when I get to hear experiences from painters and what it's like, I can appreciate their artwork so much more, because it's like, you feel the pain that they've gone through, the emotion, right? Like, and as an artist, it's definitely difficult to put yourself out there, like, especially with murals. There's a big project. That is not a small project. And like, it is a huge time. And like you said, it's a 7-week process. And by the end of it, your heart is opened up.
Oh, and literal blood, sweat, and tears, right? And vomit and other bodily fluids. Like, it was just, and then being on a scaffold with the bathroom 2 blocks away, I wet my pants a couple of times. I didn't make it in time, which made, there's I went through every friggin' emotion creating that mural, like from the depths of shame and despair, like to utter elation and like connection with other humans. And I got to do a little speech. It was a project that was funded by the Wide Arts Association and Rotary International.
Okay.
And so at the end, we got to do a little sort of, not a groundbreaking ceremony, but like, yay, the mural is done ceremony. And I got to talk, and I could barely talk. I was just blubbering because I was so grateful and so overwhelmed by just how the community came together to make it happen. And it ended up not just being me as an artist, but this was an actual community creation. And I feel like all art ends up being like that. You can't create art in a vacuum. There's always elements of other humans that are coming into creation. Like even the art teachers in my childhood that encouraged me and made it possible for me to believe in myself and to believe that it was possible to be an artist. That counts too. That's all these people that touch you along the way. And nothing breaks my heart like hearing about some teacher that's like, oh, you're not very good at that. Like you shouldn't be an artist, or that. I feel like you should never, ever say anything like that to anyone. Like, everyone is capable of creating, and that should always, always be encouraged. Like, always.
For me, it's encouraging your children, like, to the fullest. Like, if they want to be a professional wrestler, let them be a professional wrestler. Support them the entire way through it, right? So with art, I find it is definitely like, because it is such an emotional expression, from emotional to a physical, not emotional to emotional like with music or with film, but it's emotional, like you're taking what you're either trying to represent and put it onto canvas, or what you're feeling and putting it onto canvas. And there's a crossover there that I think is more spiritually connecting than with music and film. Is art has music has always pushed our culture, but art is what represents culture in the long run, I guess, is the easiest way for me to put that. Because we don't have music from Roman times that we know, right? It wasn't recorded, but the paintings from the Renaissance times and from all these other periods, that is what represented their culture. If it wasn't their artwork, it was the military value that they brought.
Yeah.
So culture is always defined by the art that we create, and paintings are usually the ones that transcend the longest. Painting is a very beautiful thing. And I think that to be able to, I'm a terrible painter. I can't see, I swear I have like a color blind, or like people tell me that certain colors are certain colors and I can't see them, but I just can't see the layers. Like it's very two-dimensional when I look at painting and try to come at it. And that's why I kind of steer away from being a painter, is because I feel I'm terrible at it because I can't break out.
You might be a good watercolor artist, because there are very few layers with watercolors. It's almost like painting with stained glass, where what you put down is what it's always gonna be there, right? You can't cover it up with another layer.
I don't think I've ever done watercolors. Yeah. Now that I think about it.
Well, might have to get you into watercolors.
I enjoy painting with sponges. That is like the one thing. I can't do a brush, but I like to I do these weird paintings with sponges where like the blending, there's almost like, kind of like when you mix paint, you know what I mean? Like how you get that weird swirls, but it's like they're blended nicely. And that's where I gravitated to as an artist, but I don't do it. It's like, I do it every now and then if I...
You can do it with your kids.
Yeah, right? Like getting into painting with them would be fun, but it's something that I never think about, like, oh, I want to paint. I do have done it in the past, but I know I'm not good at it, or I don't have the patience is probably better, is I don't have patience for waiting for paint to dry. I am terrible for
That's what hair dryers are for.
Right? I can't just I'm just sitting there oh, I gotta wait now. I never even thought about using hair dryer, honestly. But I find that gravitating to art gravitates to everybody, as where specific music gravitates to genre specific people.
Yeah, I had an art history teacher who once said, art history is history. And honestly, I before her, I hadn't had that much interest in history, but being able to see the art that we keep and that that perpetuates in culture, the pieces that are meaningful and continue to be meaningful, they have stories, they're telling moments in history, and it's almost like a touch point to that moment in time, what was happening. And you can see sort of styles that move through all of society, all over the world, around the time Emily Carr and Group of Seven, there's a very similar style going on with them and with the artists in Europe, and this sort of impressionist, abstracted reality. So it's neat to know that I'm part of that somehow. And I think that's why artists that do works that are political or historical, I think that's amazing that this is a contribution to our culture. And maybe 50 years from now, 100 years from now, a piece is going to be talked about, this represents this time because of this and this, and the artists use these colors because of this, and I think it's really cool. Yeah.
I would like to see Penticton and the Okanagan be the arts capital of Canada.
Yes, me too. Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think there's lots of arts and culture in Kelowna as well, but I think it's really important for our city councillors and the governance of our cities to uplift the arts a little bit more. I feel like the arts are a huge draw for people, that people are attracted to the arts. They come, I mean, you see the Stratford Shakespeare Festival in Ontario. That's this tiny little nothing place, but because they have, opened their hearts to the Shakespeare, now how many millions of people travel specifically for that? I think we could do that too. There's so much focus on sports and on wine
and beer and
cool, But I mean, if you're not into either of those things, and I'm not, like,
Mhm.
I don't drink wine, and I think the vineyards are beautiful, and it's great that we have an agricultural industry. I think that's awesome. And then I have nothing to say about sports. Truly. But yeah, like that we need to uplift it more. It needs to be more of a focus. It needs to be more supported and celebrated
Mhm.
by our communities, because as soon as you start turning the light on the arts, it's going to attract, like moths to a flame. People are going to come from all over the place specifically for, like, any kind of arts festival is a draw. I think people are always excited.
I feel the Okanagan cities should be more focused on pushing out their arts than worrying about pushing out tourism. No
Yeah.
one wants to come to the Okanagan if there's nothing to come to the Okanagan for. You can
Yeah.
only see
Let's have some more festivals.
Yeah, right. And like, or even just different opportunities, like the city putting on their own festivals, but actually instead of bringing in like cover bands, like why don't you hire local bands that are making it? There are a ton of amazing bands that have made it out of the Okanagan that are massive. There's
I feel like the city's pretty good about that. That at a
Penticton.
lot of our a lot of like the Canada Day Festival, and there's like Jack and Jill, and like lots of local musicians, Ari Neufeld and Mandy Levant, and it's amazing to see people that from the community up there, and like sharing their music with the community. And and I think you're right. Like, the more we can sort of uplift and encourage the local artists, like we have a sculpture walk downtown now, and the art changes. I think, is it every year, every 2 years?
I think it's every 2 years.
Yeah.
I feel like it is.
Although I've noticed that it's very rarely local artists, local sculptors, and I'm like, how? I don't even
I would
see
love to see Scott's work, but there.
Yeah.
Do you know Scott P?
Yep.
Yeah,
we went to high school together.
He's so talented at what he does.
But I have never actually seen that call for artists in the community. I don't know where they're sending it out, that they're attracting these sculptors from, well, I mean, they're mostly from BC, but not a lot of them.
No, they're like little rural areas and stuff. Yeah.
Who are they sending the call out to that the local artists aren't ever seeing it and having an opportunity to apply? I don't know. I could be wrong about that. So maybe
it's also like, I think that there's so much out there that it's kind of hard to like see it all at the same time. That's too. True.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of
local
like
arts council is really good about disseminating information. Like, if they find out there's been a call for artists anywhere in BC, they're really quick to share it with our community. So I appreciate how hardworking they are, and what they do to foster the arts in the community.
I got some flack from a member of the Penticton Arts Council recently on our flyers because we haven't found a dedicated artist I have an artist, but he charges a lot of money to do for flyers. And flyers versus merch to me as a promoter, as an artist and a musician, it's a hard crossover when you're dealing with artists sometimes. Like, there's a big thing in the musician community right now about AI art and people using it for flyers and album covers. And I, as a person who's like, I appreciate art. Clearly, I am an arts person, and I help to attend the arts community. But I've also like worked with artists where we've paid them like $300 and they just ghost us. Oh, you know what I mean? And like, there's a weird disconnect sometimes between the industries as where we could all work together, but
hire me to do your flyer next
right
time.
I would love to. That's the thing, is it's hard for specific flyers, because like, especially like, for example, putting on a festival out of pocket, I'm already gonna lose money paying the artist and bringing people in, so like and that's coming out of my children's mouths at the end of the day. So it's like, I'm gonna support where I can, You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if I can do what I can by myself in other regions, I will. So like flyers, as a personal person, like as an artist and a musician and a person who supports the art, I feel flyers isn't a big deal. Album covers, I'll pay $1,000. You know
Mm.
what I mean? But like a flyer
Yeah.
that it's like there's no return on a flyer.
Well, I mean, it's tricky with AI. I really feel like the cat's out of the bag, and I see it being used more and more. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and
Mm-hmm.
then some of my favorite podcasts, they have a different, artwork for each of their episodes, and I've noticed that a lot of them have stopped using artists and are using AI art now. And I'm like, oh, well, I don't want to stop listening to the podcast just because they're using AI art.
Right. I've been waiting to sit with an artist to ask of this because like a lot of people do have a negative outlook on it, and I personally can't
I
stand.
mean, I'm being totally transparent. I use AI. I like Chat GPT. I use it frequently to just even to check things that I've written and to help me tidy them up. And I'll still take it and workshop it again after it runs through the program. But um, when it comes to the art, I feel like artists should have a right to remove their art from the algorithm and say, no, sorry, computer brain, you can't look at my stuff, you can't reference my work. But the fact that it's able to do that, and and that it's already making art, it's already referencing art from art history, there's no putting the genie back in the bottle. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's out and it's happening. And I guess it's up to the arts community to work with it as much as they can, but also for us to educate the users. And like, for example, the flyer, maybe you don't want to pay, a mid-career artist $300+ for an image, but that might be a good opportunity to approach, artists at the college or something,
Mm-hmm.
people who are at the very beginning of their career and need a little bit of exposure and are willing to work for less for exposure. Um,
It's more or less, so I guess I phrased that wrong. So I have an artist, I have three artists actually that we work with full time. So like the design on the back of the shirt is, they're all Indonesian artists because that's where my family's from. So I'm going to support.
mhm.
Also, if I give them like $300, it's like $3 million to them. So it's like you're helping them big time. And North American artists, like especially graphic designers, not painters, because painters don't really do the flyers. It's more like the people like graphic designers. They tend to overcharge for what they're offering, and I've noticed there's a lot of graphic designers out there who use AI and then claim it to be their own and alter it
Yeah,
slightly, and then they're like, "Oh, we
yeah.
made this." So like AI is a very unique thing, and like from an artist perspective, I completely understand, and it's like I said, it's a topic I've really wanted to talk to an
Mm.
artist because most are heavily against it, but to hear you say that like you utilize it
Mm.
in specific ways, which is the same way I do. Like if I'm writing something up, I don't want to sound, if it's professional, I'm going to get it to be just like if I was going to send to a proofreader, right? Like
Yeah,
that
it's
is my
like an
proofreader. It
assistant.
is my
Yeah.
assistant. It helps.
Hmm.
But like I'm not going to go and like generate me this image and then use that. Like that's not how you
And
utilize it.
yeah.
And I think you touch on a point that I think more artists need to understand is, as musicians, we went from guitars to electric guitars to synthesized guitars to now you can make any instrumental you want on a laptop.
Yeah, just type it up.
We had to accept it.
Yeah.
We had to adapt and overcome and still make our art and still to this day
Yeah.
compete with the AI, which can do anything that musicians can do.
Mm.
But
Mhm.
they still have to accept, like that's where it's just diving into the art world now with like technology and art getting introduced, as we're like the music industry and film industry have always dealt with it because it's constantly having to evolve with the
Mm.
technology.
I think it's important that we continue to value the human touch, even when it becomes indistinguishable, which cookie has the human touch.
Hmm.
if I tell you it's this one, hopefully you're going to value this one more than that one, even though they taste the same.
And then you
I
come to
don't know.
marketing, and their marketing's like they can convince you whichever one is better, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's
very tricky.
It is. And
Yeah.
I think that that's what's kind of like, as we grow as artists, as we grow up and we see the world for what it really is, and you start to see, like, when you turn it into from a hobby to a business is when it becomes very hard to switch it off, because you start to see it for what it is and not for the magic that it was. You know what I mean? You start to see for, wow, this is life. It's not just a passion anymore. Have there been points in your career where you're looking at paintings and you're just like, why am I doing this?
Oh yeah, for sure. Frequently.
How do you push through?
I think not pushing through has become really important. That it's been more and more important for me to respect the fallow periods, and just, I know that the creative spark is always there, and I will access it when the time and the circumstances are right again. I used to really beat myself up when I'm like, oh, I haven't painted in, a year or a month or a week or whatever. Whereas now I can go, that's okay. When there's time and space, I've got like 6 or 8 or 10 paintings in here, and they'll come out when the time is right. The only time that a push is really required is when there's a commission on my plate, and like right now I'm illustrating a book, and I had a hard time because I knew that the deadline was coming up and I just wasn't feeling it. But luckily my author, the author I'm working with, she's like, well, I feel that when you're ready, it's just going to flow out of you. And just honestly, just her saying that to me and knowing that she had my back and I had her understanding, it unlocked something in me. And that's exactly what happened, that it was able to flow out. However, if she hadn't said that to me, I still would have had to do it, right? I still would have had to like force the art out, which like the quality, I'm sure like you've had commissions or things you've had to do, and the feeling behind it isn't as open and flowing and pure. So maybe the output isn't the thing that you're most proud of. So I'm really grateful that I'm working with someone who understands artists and was willing to be open in that way to my creativity coming when it could. I feel like whatever you can make work for you is what you can do, because I mean I'm never going to be famous on social media, and I've accepted that. And that's okay, but I've still got my little niche here in Penticton.
Well, that's the thing is you still have, that's kind of what I was getting at, is like you have a career being an artist. Like you've done what you've wanted to do.
Yes.
And same with Dave. He has made it to where he wants to be. There's nothing more successful than that.
Yeah.
You've made it.
It's true.
Like to have to like put yourself and like focus on like, oh, social media, I'm not famous on social media. No, but you made it. You've done your career. You've made it. You're where you wanted to be. And I think that that's like what we got to remind ourselves daily is that like we're not competing with the rest of the world. No,
truly. No. And there's enough room for everybody. I mean, I'm like pineapple, not everybody likes pineapple. But there's enough people that do that, I can make my pineapple cake and people are going to buy it,
Yeah.
But it's not for everybody, and no art is for everybody. I think that's where we make the mistake, is when we start thinking, why doesn't everybody like me? Why, I make art for everyone. No, you don't. Nobody does. There's no such thing as art for everyone. I mean, maybe what ends up on the for sale at Winners and Walmart is art for everyone. But even then, how long do people keep that on their walls, Like,
I don't make art for anybody but me. I'll be honest.
Oh, that's the way you got to do it.
I will be dead honest. I write my music for me to get through hard points in my life.
Yes.
And if people like it and they enjoy it,
cool,
then it's for them.
Yeah.
but I don't sit there consciously thinking I'm gonna write this song for this type of person or somebody in this mood. Like, no, I've never like, so it's weird. Most art isn't focused on other people. Like, you're not doing it for other people. Like you said,
Yeah.
you're doing it for you, which will translate to other people, but we tend to think of it as we're doing it for other people. But in reality, it's like it's a cathartic thing for us to heal ourselves.
That's the best start, for sure, is when it's just something that I need to do and I want to do. It's not for any specific outcome, right? Like, I just need to get it out so that I don't go crazy. That always ends up being the art that I am the most proud of and that I like the most. Whether or not anyone else does, like, you're right, it doesn't ultimately matter. I think that that's sort of true for most creative individuals, right? Where we're making it not because we're trying to impress anyone or because we're trying to make a career out of it, but because we need to.
Yeah. If there was any advice you'd give an aspiring artist who is, because there's always a point where you're like, I want to do this, but how do I step out? How do I get out and going into it to make it a career? What advice would you give?
Just make art. That's it. Yeah, I think too often, because we're not getting likes or because we're not getting positive feedback, we're like, oh, well, I guess I shouldn't. And I think that's like the main advice I've always had for young artists is just keep a sketchbook in your bag with you. Draw every chance you get. Like, you're on a bus ride going to and from school, draw the people on the bus, take notes. But I think as long as you are fostering the habit of creation, eventually it will take you somewhere. Even if it just ends up being something that you're doing only for yourself and no one ever sees it, cool. That doesn't matter. You know, as long as you are creating, I think it will give you a sense of well-being and growth. You know, I think that's the main thing, is just do it. Don't worry about the outcome. Don't worry about the big bucks or the fame. I mean, I used to really care about that and really I wish I could be a famous artist. I don't think I ever will be. I think I'm just gonna keep making art.
Your name's pretty well known in the Okanagan, so I think you have made it to be.
Well, thanks. That's nice to hear.
I mean, fame is a perspective, right? Like, a lot of people think Picasso is a famous artist. I think Picasso's work is terrible.
Oh, I'm
You know what I mean?
fully with you.
Like, so
I can't stand Picasso.
Yeah, so like it.
But
I
he's
think,
another, he's a grapefruit. Not everyone
exactly,
likes grapefruit.
exactly, and I think that's what makes, like, not everyone's gonna like what you do, but the people that do are gonna gravitate to it so much, and I think that that's more valuable than the whole world liking it. Like, I would way rather be an underground artist who people really love what I do versus than be like a Banksy or a Taylor Swift who everyone knows, but it's McDonald's. You know what I mean? Like, there's no sustenance to when you're eating it. It's like it's fast food art or music, and I feel like we all want like the big steak meals, and that's where the underground artists are. You got to look under the rocks and look in the dingy areas, because that's what art is.
That's some crazy mixed metaphors, though. And now I'm thinking of looking for steak meals under rocks. I'm like, oh, a worm.
It's funny. Well, Endrene, I want to thank you so much for doing this. This has been
thanks so
incredible,
much.
and getting to sit down and talk with you guys has been mind-blowing, because I've got to, it's been an easy 10 years since I've got to sit around either of you and talk about life, and you guys have come so far in that time. It's quite mind-blowing.
Yeah, right? Every overnight sensation, there's like 15 or 20 years behind the scenes.
Right, and that's the thing, is it's not an overnight grind, and I think that if we can inspire the younger generation to realize it's not an overnight grind, and
there's
it's
no
not
such
overnight
thing
success.
as instant success. I mean, there are the anomalies, but for the most part, it's just showing up for yourself as a creative and doing the work.
Yeah, it's true. I want to thank you again, and we will catch you guys next time.